My mom's new husband told me to stay in my place, so I gave him a reality check. I'm 23 meters. My mom is 48F, and her new husband is 35. He wants me out of the house. My dad passed away 5 years ago, and it was just me and my mom for a long time. We weren't perfect, but we had a good relationship. I was in college at the time, and even though it was hard, we got through it together. Then about a year ago, she got married to John. I never really warmed up to him. It's not that I expected my mom to be alone forever, but something about him just felt off. He was always polite enough, but it was like he was playing a role, like everything was carefully calculated. The kind of person who smiles a little too much and says all the right things, but something about it just doesn't feel real. I'm in grad school now and living at home to save money. I also work part-time, so I help with bills and groceries. It's temporary, but it makes sense right now. John, however, seems to think I should be long gone. He never outright says it, but the hints are always there. Things like, it must be so nice for you to have the safety net, but at some point, every bird has to leave the nest. Or the casual, when you get your own place, you'll understand how important personal space is. He never says I need to move out, but the message is clear. At first, I ignored it, but then small things started happening. My food in the fridge would mysteriously disappear. My laundry, which I left in the dryer, would be dumped on my bed while his and my mom's were neatly folded. Once, I found my shoes missing from the hallway shoe rack shoved into the back of the closet. Nothing big, just small annoying things. Then came the family dinner. My mom had invited some relatives over, and John, of course, played the perfect host. Everything was going fine until someone asked about my future plans. Before I could answer, John jumped in with, well, he's an adult now. At some point, grown children need to know their place. This house belongs to his mother and me now. The table got quiet. I looked at my mom expecting her to say something, but she just gave that tired let's not make a scene look. I smiled and asked John, oh, and what exactly is my place since I pay bills here and have lived here longer than you? He did that thing where he pretends to laugh like I was joking, but he wasn't joking. He doubled down saying I needed to respect the man of the house. And then he said it, I think 6 months is a fair timeline for him to find a place of his own. As if he was setting the terms, I looked at my mom again. Nothing. Just an awkward sip of her drink. I told him flat out that I wasn't going anywhere. If my mom wanted me out, she could say it herself. He didn't like that. After that, the little things escalated. My stuff was being accidentally misplaced more often. My name was mysteriously left off a dinner reservation. When the family went out, I overheard him on the phone telling someone he was still working on making the house a home like I was some obstacle. I finally called him out one day when I found my textbook stacked in a corner of the garage. He acted surprised, said he was just tidying up. That was it for me. I told him point blank that I knew what he was doing. And if he kept messing with my things, I'd start moving his stuff around too. He looked offended as if I was the one being unreasonable. He ran to my mom, of course, telling her I was being hostile. She pulled the "can't you two just try to get along" card. When I told her he was literally trying to erase my presence from the house, she sighed and said he was just trying to make things comfortable for everyone. I knew then that she wasn't going to stand up for me. Not really. I talked to my friends about it. They all agreed he was being shady. My grandparents, my dad's parents, were furious. My grandmother actually laughed and said, he thinks he can push you out of your own home. We'll see about that. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to sit back and let John push me out. If he wanted a power struggle, fine, but I wasn't going to be the one backing down. The next phase of John's little campaign started with papers taped to my bedroom door. They were house rules. Not normal household stuff. This was a full-on roommate agreement like I was renting a room from him. Rules like no overnight guests without prior approval. Any visitors must be cleared in advance, and personal belongings should be kept in your designated space only. I looked at the list, then at my mom, who was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone. I held it up. She barely glanced at it before saying John was just trying to establish structure. I asked if I should make my own list of rules for him. That got her attention real quick. Her face tensed. She said that wasn't necessary and that I should try to be understanding. John stood in the kitchen acting like he wasn't listening. I crumpled up the paper and tossed it in the trash. The next day, I invited my best friend over for a study session. Nothing crazy, just notes, coffee, and an attempt to survive grad school. Half an hour in, John appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. He demanded to know why I didn't ask before inviting someone over. I looked at my mom, who was at the dining table pretending to read something. No help there. I pointed out that this was still my home, and I didn't need permission to have a friend over. He made a big show of sighing like I was making things difficult. Then he turned to my mom and asked if she seriously thought this was okay. She hesitated, probably weighing whether it was worth the argument, then finally muttered that I should be more considerate. John acted like he won. Later, when I asked why John got to make rules for me, but I couldn't make rules for him, she sighed and said he was just trying to make the house feel like home. I asked, for who? She didn't answer. A couple of weeks later, we had a family gathering. One of my aunts asked how things were at home. And before I could answer, John jumped in with a laugh and said I was still living there, acting like a little kid who didn't want to let go of his mommy. People chuckled awkwardly. I didn't. I made sure my voice was loud enough for the room. I said John seemed very invested in getting rid of me for someone who moved into my house and started making demands. Dead silence. My mom, of course, did nothing. Just rubbed her forehead like she had a headache. John's smile twitched, but he didn't say anything else. That night, I noticed some of my things were misplaced again. At first, just minor annoyances. My framed photo of me and my dad wasn't where I left it. My books were stacked oddly in the garage. Then I realized what was missing entirely. My favorite blanket, a book my grandmother gave me. It wasn't just misplacing things anymore. He was erasing me from the house piece by piece. I checked the house, gone. John was in the living room, scrolling through his phone like nothing was wrong. I asked where my stuff was. He didn't even look up, said he'd been decluttering, and must have accidentally donated some things. My mom, overhearing, finally looked up from her phone. John, that's not okay, she said, her voice uneasy. He laughed it off, but I saw the flicker of irritation in his eyes. He didn't like her questioning him. I got in my car and drove straight to the nearest donation center. It took some digging, but I found my things in a donation bin. My blanket was still folded like it had just been placed there. I brought everything back home and walked straight past John without a word. I didn't even react when he tried to act innocent. Although, you got your things back. That's great. I didn't mean to upset you. I put everything back where it belonged. Then I walked into the kitchen, looked him straight in the eye, and told him if he touched my stuff again, I'd start going through his things. That wiped the smug look off his face. He ran to my mom again, all teary-eyed, claiming I was threatening him. She finally told him to just stop. Of course, he turned it around saying he was the victim, that he was trying to make things work, and I was bullying him. I didn't care anymore. That was the moment I decided. He wasn't pushing me out. I was leaving on my terms. John thought he was winning. He walked around the house like he owned the place, making little comments about how nice it'll be when things are finally settled. He stopped pretending to be friendly and just acted like I was some unwanted guest overstaying my welcome. Fine. He wanted me out. He'd get his wish, but not in the way he expected. I started looking at apartments, but I kept quiet. I wasn't about to give him the satisfaction of knowing he'd gotten to me. No complaints, no arguments, just silence. After a few weeks, my mom picked up on it. She'd ask if something was wrong, if I was okay. I told her I was just respecting John's space like he wanted. She looked guilty. I could tell she wanted to say something, but she didn't. Meanwhile, John took my lack of reaction as a sign he was winning. He started redecorating, slowly pushing my presents out of the house. Framed photos of me disappeared from the shelves. My books, my small decorations moved to the garage without a word. One day, I came home to find my desk chair replaced with a decorative plant. I just nodded and walked past him. He smirked. I didn't tell my grandparents what I was planning, but they knew something was off. One day, my grandmother pulled me aside and asked if I needed help. I told her I was looking at apartments. She nodded, pulled out her checkbook, and wrote something down. Security deposit, she said. And I'll co-sign if you need. I didn't argue. I just thanked her. John kept making little comments. Things like, it's good that you're preparing for the real world. Some people need a push to grow up. I just smiled and said, you're right. Some people do. He thought he was setting the terms. He had no idea. I found an apartment. It wasn't huge, but it was mine. Signed the lease, got my keys, and set a move-in date, all without a word to John or my mom. The perfect opportunity came when they planned a weekend trip. As soon as they left, I got to work. Everything I owned was packed up and loaded into a truck in under a day. My friend came to help. And by the next morning, my room was completely empty. No trace of me left. Before I left, I sat down and wrote a note for my mom. I told her I loved her, but I wasn't going to be treated like a guest in my own home. I let her know I had a place now and that I'd keep in touch with my grandparents. But from now on, if she wanted to talk to me, she had to reach out first. I blocked John's number before I even walked out the door. I left the note on the kitchen counter and locked the door behind me, then I was gone. The fallout started almost immediately. By the time my mom and John got back from their trip, I was long gone. My room was empty. My things were packed, and the only thing left behind was my note. The first call came that evening, missed, then another, then a text. Why didn't you tell me? We could have talked. I ignored it. More messages followed. She wanted to meet. She wanted to understand. She said I should have come to her instead of just leaving. I finally answered. I told her I had tried to talk over and over again. But every time she had let John steamroll the conversation, she had let him erase me from the house piece by piece. Silence. Then she said she didn't realize how bad it had gotten. I didn't respond. A few days later, a new number texted me. John, he acted like this was all just a misunderstanding, that he never wanted me to leave, that he only wanted to blend the family, and that maybe things had gotten tense, but it was never personal. He said he missed having me around. I laughed. I asked why, if he never wanted me to leave, he moved my belongings to the garage, why he conveniently forgot to include my name and family reservations, why he was pushing rules on me like a landlord, why he threw out my things and pretended it was an accident. The reply was instant. I was being unfair. I was turning him into the villain. I blocked him. A week later, my mom showed up at my apartment. She stood at the door for a second, looking exhausted. She didn't try to come in, just stood there, like she wasn't sure what to say. Finally, she admitted it. John went too far. She had let him. She said she should have stepped in sooner. I just nodded. I told her I wasn't against having a relationship with her, but I wasn't going to pretend like none of this happened. If she wanted me in her life, she had to acknowledge how badly she had failed me. She nodded. For the first time, I think she actually understood. John tried one last time. He invited me to dinner. He wanted to talk things out, clear the air. I declined. He acted surprised. I didn't explain. Word got out. Relatives started hearing about what happened, and most of them took my side. Some were shocked that John had acted this way. Others weren't surprised at all. A few relatives, mostly distant ones, tried to defend him, said I should try to be the bigger person. I ignored them. John, of course, hated that people knew. He started acting bitter, complaining to anyone who would listen. He made little comments about how I brainwashed my mom, how he was just trying to build a family, and I ruined it. He said I had been waiting for an excuse to push him out. No one really bought it. I stopped paying attention. John could spin whatever story he wanted. It didn't matter. I was done. I had my own space, my own life, and I didn't have to walk on eggshells anymore. And for the first time in a long time, everything felt right. Moving out didn't stop John. Even though I was gone, my name still came up in that house. For months, he kept bringing me up, complaining to my mom, acting like I was some villain who had ruined his perfect vision of his home. It didn't matter that I wasn't even there anymore. He still found ways to make it about me. And my mom, at first, she let it slide, but slowly, the cracks started forming. The tension between them got worse. At first, it was small things, disagreements over chores, how the house was run, little arguments that ended with John huffing, and my mom sighing. Then he started getting angry over things that had nothing to do with me. He wanted control over everything. What furniture went where, who they spent time with, what my mom was allowed to do with her own money. One of my cousins who still kept in touch with my mom mentioned that she wasn't looking happy anymore. That every time they saw her, she looked tired, like she was walking on eggshells in her own house. The final straw wasn't one big thing. It was the buildup. My mom started noticing it in small ways. John's complaints about me didn't stop even after I was gone. Then he started nitpicking everything else. Her spending, her friendships, even her work hours. It wasn't just about me. He had to control everything. And for the first time, my mom saw it clearly. He complained to my aunts and uncles saying I had abandoned my mom and turned people against him. He whined about how unfair it was that people took my side. He didn't realize something. The more he talked, the more people started seeing the pattern. It was never about me. He just liked to control things. And now that I was gone, he had lost his favorite target. I wasn't even keeping up with them. But one day, I got a text from my cousin. "Dude, I think your mom's thinking about leaving John." I blinked at my phone. Apparently, my mom had mentioned to a relative that she was reevaluating things. It wasn't an official decision yet, but it was clear she wasn't happy. Somehow, John found out that I knew before he did, and he lost it. I woke up to a nasty message from an unknown number. He went off about how I had ruined his marriage, about how I had poisoned my mom's mind, about how I was selfish and ungrateful. Blocked. A few weeks later, my mom reached out again. This time, it wasn't just a check-in. She admitted everything, that she had been blind, that she let John go too far, that she should have protected me instead of keeping the peace. She didn't expect forgiveness. She just wanted to say it. I didn't answer right away. But later, I told her if she wanted to rebuild our relationship, she had to show me. No more empty words. No more excuses. She agreed. John tried one last time. He sent another message. This time from a different number asking me to make peace for my mom's sake. Said I should talk to her. Help fix things, be the bigger person. Blocked again. Not my problem. A year later, I got a call from my cousin. It's official. She filed. The marriage was over. John didn't take it well. He played the victim to anyone who would listen. Said my mom had changed, that she was cruel and heartless. No one bought it. I never gloated, never threw it in his face. I just enjoyed my peace. My grandparents told me they were proud of me for standing my ground, for refusing to let someone push me out of my own home. John wanted me to stay in my place. I did, just not in the way he expected. John was finally out of my mom's life. The divorce was finalized, the paperwork signed, and everything settled, but I didn't hear it from her. I found out from my grandmother. She casually mentioned it over coffee one afternoon. "Oh, your mother's finally free of that man." That was it. No dramatic announcement. No grand speech from my mom. John, on the other hand, wasn't taking it so well. Almost immediately, he started running his mouth to extended family. He told anyone who would listen that I was the reason his marriage fell apart, that I had brainwashed my mom, turned her against him, and ruined their happiness. He spun a whole story about how he had tried to be a loving stepfather, but I had made it impossible. Of course, some distant relatives bought into it. A few sent messages asking why I hated John so much. One even suggested I should apologize and make things right. I ignored all of it. I didn't respond. I let him talk, let him spin his little narrative, because the thing about people like John, they don't know when to stop. And the more he talked, the worse he made himself look. A few weeks later, my mom reached out, not about John, not directly, just small check-ins, asking how I was doing, if I needed anything. Then one day in a quiet moment, she finally admitted it. She should have stood up for me sooner. I didn't say much. I wasn't ready to forgive her completely, but I appreciated the effort. But John, he wasn't done. One afternoon, he showed up at my mom's workplace. He didn't call ahead. He didn't ask to meet. He just showed up, stormed into the building, and started demanding that she fix things between them. Security had to be called. That was the moment my mom finally realized. John wasn't just controlling. He was unhinged. I didn't need revenge. John was doing all the work himself. His tantrums, his manipulations, his desperate attempts to cling on to whatever control he thought he had, it was all crumbling. And he was the one swinging the hammer. Then I heard something that made me laugh out loud. John was trying to date a family friend, one of my aunts. Apparently, he had started reaching out, testing the waters, trying to slip into another branch of the family tree. My aunt shut him down immediately. Not just a polite rejection, full-on laughter followed by, "Yeah, that's never happening." Word spread fast. John was becoming a joke. That's when the cryptic Facebook posts started. Stuff about betrayal and fake families. Dramatic quotes about people who pretend to love you but stab you in the back. He didn't name names, but everyone knew who he was talking about. It was embarrassing. Then my grandparents stepped in. They weren't about to let him rewrite history. They publicly called him out, set the record straight, pointed out that he had pushed me out of my own home, had disrespected my mother's family, and had only himself to blame for the mess he was in. It was brutal. John deleted the posts within hours, but instead of disappearing, he started reaching out privately, messaging people one by one, playing the victim, looking for sympathy. He wasn't getting it. Most of the family was firmly on my side. The ones who had bought into his sob story, they started distancing themselves. Even the relatives who had been on the fence finally saw the truth. John was grasping at straws. Then out of nowhere, he emailed me directly. He wanted to talk. He wanted to clear the air. I didn't reply. I just left him on read. John had spent so much time trying to push me out of his life, and now he wasn't in mine. John had officially lost everything. The house, the marriage, the family support, gone. But instead of quietly moving on, he did what people like him always do. He spiraled, and he made sure everyone knew it. At first, he kept up the act. He went around telling anyone who would listen that he was the real victim, that my mom had been pressured into divorcing him, that I had brainwashed her, that he had tried to make things work, but I had ruined everything. Nobody was buying it. Extended family members started ignoring him. People he used to invite over for wine nights suddenly weren't returning his calls. Even the few distant relatives who had sided with him before were now keeping their distance. He wasn't a misunderstood man who lost his wife. He was a walking disaster, and everyone saw it. Then he started posting online long dramatic paragraphs about fake people and betrayal, cryptic messages about losing everything because of selfish people, quotes about karma and justice. It was embarrassing. And then he started going after my mom directly. He made posts implying that she cheated on him, that she was a liar, that she led him on, made him believe he had a future, then threw him away. My mom wasn't even on social media, so she didn't see it at first, but other people did. Word spread. Someone showed her screenshots. She finally called me not to defend herself, not to ask what to do, just to say, "I can't believe I didn't see it sooner." With my mom ignoring him, John needed a new audience. And for some reason, he thought my aunt, my mom's sister, was the next best option. He tried flirting with her, sending casual messages, liking her old posts, bringing up how crazy everything had been, and how some people had turned against him. My aunt, who had never liked him to begin with, laughed loudly. Then she told the entire family. Now John wasn't just an ex-husband. He was a joke. The silence from my mom must have been driving him insane because one night he tried a new angle. He called her in the middle of the night, claimed he was struggling, said he needed help. He played it up. How hard things had been, how he was barely getting by, how he just needed one conversation to make things right. For a second, my mom almost fell for it, but then she stopped herself, and she hung up. She called me the next day, told me about it, and I told her exactly what was happening. He wasn't struggling. He was desperate. He didn't want help. He wanted control. And if she wasn't careful, he'd sink his claws right back in. When my mom didn't fall for it, John went for the next best thing, sympathy. He started reaching out to my younger cousins, telling them he was being treated unfairly, that my mom was cold and heartless, that I had turned her against him. They laughed, then they told me everything. That's when the biggest lie dropped. John started telling people that I ruined his career. He claimed that because of me, he had lost job opportunities, that I had spread rumors about him, damaged his reputation, and left him with nothing. I hadn't spoken to him in months, so I looked into it. Turns out, he had quit his job when he married my mom. He thought he could live off her money forever. And now that he was on his own, he had nothing to fall back on. That was his mistake. Not mine. That was it for my mom. She finally blocked his phone, email, everything. No more second chances. No more pity. He was done. And then came the last message. A long furious email, full of rage, full of accusations, full of "you destroyed my life." He blamed me for everything, for my mom leaving, for the family turning against him, for his career falling apart, for the fact that he had nothing. It ended with one final dramatic line. "I hope you're happy. You got exactly what you wanted." I replied with one sentence. "I just stayed in my place like you told me to," then I blocked him for good. John finally disappeared. No more angry emails. No more cryptic Facebook posts. No more attempts to twist the narrative. After months of throwing tantrums and trying to manipulate everyone around him, he must have realized that nobody was falling for it anymore. And just like that, he was gone. With John out of the picture, my mom finally started putting in the effort to fix things. She reached out more, not with guilt trips or excuses, just genuine conversations. She started showing up, asking how I was doing, actually listening instead of just trying to smooth things over. It wasn't instant. She knew she had messed up. She knew that rebuilding trust wasn't going to happen overnight. But for the first time in a long time, she was trying. Meanwhile, I had moved on, new apartment. New routines. No more walking on eggshells. No more passive-aggressive comments. No more feeling like an outsider in my own home. I was focused on my career, enjoying my independence. And for the first time in years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder waiting for the next problem to appear. John had once made me feel like I had no place. Now I had built one for myself. My grandparents had been in my corner from the start. They watched everything unfold, never wavering in their support. When it was all over, my grandmother just nodded and said, "Took long enough." My grandmother hugged me and told me how proud she was. "You stood your ground. You didn't let him push you around. That's what matters." The few relatives who had sided with John, they faded away. No big confrontations. No dramatic arguments. They just stopped reaching out, which was fine. If they had believed John's version of events, they weren't people I needed in my life anyway. A few months later, I heard through the grapevine that John was struggling financially. He had quit his job when he married my mom, assuming he could live off her income forever. Now no alimony, no financial security, and apparently no real friends left. He had burned every bridge he had. One day, my mom admitted it. She had been blind. She should have seen it sooner. She should have defended me instead of trying to keep the peace. She should have realized that John wasn't just a strong personality, but a controlling, manipulative person who was trying to push me out. She said she was sorry, and I believed her. I wasn't going to pretend none of it happened. I wasn't going to erase the years of tension, stress, and fights, but I was open to moving forward. Not for her, not for the past. For myself. John never reached out again. The last time I heard about him was through a random mutual acquaintance who mentioned he had moved away to start fresh. I didn't ask for details. I didn't care. He was out of my life for good. In the end, John got exactly what he wanted. He wanted me gone. He wanted me to stay in my place, and I did, just not in the way he expected. I was happy. I was free. And for the first time in a long time, I was completely at peace. A year later, a year had passed since John's meltdown, and life had never been better. I had fully moved on. New apartment, great job, solid friendships, no stress. No drama. No John. Even my relationship with my mom had improved. She was more present, more aware. She didn't try to rewrite history or pretend everything was fine. She owned up to her mistakes, and little by little, we rebuilt what John had tried to destroy. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. Then out of nowhere, his name popped up again. I was at a cousin's get-together when someone casually mentioned, "Oh, yeah. John's still bitter. He still rants about you sometimes." I almost laughed a whole year later, and he was still talking about me. I didn't ask for details. But later that night, curiosity got the best of me. I pulled up a burner account and checked his profile. And there it was. Post after post of vague, passive-aggressive nonsense about fake family members and people who destroy marriages. Nothing direct. Nothing with my name on it, but it was obvious. Even after all this time, he was still playing the victim. Then I found out the real kicker. John had tried to live off alimony, except there was barely any. The prenup had made sure of that. He had assumed he could keep up his same lifestyle. Fancy dinners, going clubs, weekend getaways, but reality hit hard. Now he was working a job he used to mock. The same kind of job he once sneered at, calling it beneath him. The irony was too perfect, and it wasn't just his finances that had crumbled. Most of his old friends had distanced themselves. Turns out, people get tired of hearing the same sob story over and over. At some point, even the most sympathetic friends realize that maybe, just maybe, you're the problem. He had pushed people away just like he tried to push me out. Now he was alone. Then I heard the best part. John was living in a smaller apartment, now not destitute, but far from the comfortable life he had expected. The lavish lifestyle he had planned for himself had slipped through his fingers, and now he was just another person working to make ends meet. And the worst part for him, no one cared. He wanted to be the king of the house. Now he didn't even have one. Meanwhile, my mom had moved on. She had started dating again, but this time, she was much more cautious. No rushing into things. No letting someone dictate her relationships. I wasn't involved in her dating life. I didn't need to be, but I supported her. I wanted her to be happy, just not with someone like John ever again. Then out of nowhere, he tried one last time, a carefully worded email, not an apology exactly, but a plea wrapped in guilt-tripping. I just wish things could have been different. I never wanted it to be like this. Maybe we can find a way to make things right. After all, we're family. It was classic John playing the victim, never taking responsibility. I left him on read, a fake apology tone, claiming he never meant for things to get this bad, that he just wanted peace, that he hoped one day we could move past everything. I didn't even bother replying. He didn't want peace. He wanted control, and I wasn't giving him any. A week later, he made one last bitter post. Some people will do anything to turn a mother against her husband. I actually laughed. It wasn't anger anymore, just amusement. He had no one to blame but himself. A few days later, my mom saw the post and just rolled her eyes. He never learns. That was the last time we ever spoke about him. I blocked him from everything. Email, social media, every possible way he could ever reach me. Not out of anger, not out of spite, just because he didn't matter anymore. John wanted me gone. Now I was thriving, and he was struggling, alone and miserable. I didn't need revenge. John had already destroyed himself.